Mary Ann Luna, a 74-year-old woman living in Gilbert, Arizona, had a friendship that lasted about 30 years. They did many things together: lunch every day for 15 years, trips, and even Luna's friend hosting a brunch when her daughter was married. In 2016, Luna's friend started supporting Trump heavily after a grueling election cycle. The last straw was a prayer about Trump Luna was sent by her friend, knowing she did not support the candidate. After that, the relationship was over and they remain out of contact to this day. When an individual opens up to you, telling you what they think in America has gotten to a point where people are too scared to really open up and discuss things. NBC News on August 22nd, 2020 tells us outright a perfect representation of how most people look at the state of politics in the country we live in. When the author says people haven't even met someone and all their opinions regarding them are being formed, proves just how wrong we all are when looking at the political ideologies we have formed on our opinion of people. Looking at the other side as enemies can and will have profound effects not only in the America we live in today, but it affects the entire future of the country for future generations. Understanding the polarization in our democracy is the first step to saving it. Through the history of democracy in America, you will see how from the first election the country ever held came with intense feelings of rivalry and animosity towards opposing sides. Till today, we will examine the causes, implications, and effects to get a better understanding of how just polarized we are. Let's take a look of how we got here. The 2020 U.S. History article shows us that even from the beginning, the two-party system would produce some level of political divide. In 1796, the United States of America held its first election in the history of the country, vastly changing the course of America and the world we live in. Politicians started to run for office at every level of government. This was extremely different from how things were in the Revolutionary era. People started to realize that they had a legitimate say in who and how the government will be ran. Two major parties emerged: Federalists and Democratic Republicans. The two groups had large differences in their idea of how a country should be run, so the election held significance for both parties. Federalists strongly supported the idea of a strong government involvement, while the Democratic Republicans supported the furthering of revolution to ordinary people. Slander coming from both sides and overall thinking the other side was mistaken in their views came from both. Federalists thought Democratic Republicans were radicals, and the Republicans called the Federalists aristocrats, trying to lay the foundations for a monarchical government. Following the most recent election, the country went through political division that the country hasn't seen in decades. A 2021 USC article shows many reasons as to what may have caused the division in the first place. The Democratic strategist Robert Strom states when looking at American politics, opponents aren't looking at the other side as opponents as all, rather enemies. This could play a crucial part in the downfall of American democracy. Strom goes on to say the losers of a political party try to burn down the stadium. Not being able to accept the other opinions is a clear reason so many people feel so divided. The infodemic, as described in the 2020 CNN article as conspiracy theories increasing polarization in groups, adds to America's political division as well. With fake accounts flooding people's social media feeds with misinformation, fake pictures, and quotes taken out of context, it is no secret as to why so many people feel so strongly about their respective ideas. It's clear that the government has been a problem in the government since day one. Now, the effects are silencing communication, needed to fix the issue. Let's examine two effects. First, creating and maintaining relationships. Second, the limitation of political speech with friends and family. The silencing of political speech is adding to the problem. Talking about points that one disagrees with is the only way an individual can learn, and people are afraid of doing just that. In a 2020 poll by the Siena College Research Institute, the college assembled a poll that showed over half, 55% of Americans, say that they have held their tongue over the last year because they were concerned about relationships or harsh criticism from other people. With over half the people in the country afraid of sharing political talk, there is no way for opposing sides to come together. Having different opinions is a natural thing, but to be afraid to share them is the problem. To understand why people are scared of sharing their personal views, Cato.org produced a poll. In August of 2020, the poll showed that 62% of Americans were worried it would affect their careers. We can all assume that there's no more important thing than someone providing for their family, so by simply not talking about it, they can avoid the scare at all. Some may think that people are overreacting to the political climate currently taking place. The same poll from Cato.org showed that nearly 1/3, 31% of Americans would support firing a business executive who personally donated to Donald Trump's campaign. This is a perfect example of why some people are not talking about anything. Understanding why people are afraid of sharing views is just one step in the fight to help America heal. If this continues, many different problems can arise. Crippled efforts at legislative compromise, eroded institutions, and compromised behavior and norms are just some of the different things that could come. The good thing is, there are ways to help it. Intergroup contact, perspective talking, and understanding the goals of everyone involved are just a few ways of how we can attack this problem. Now let's take a look at the implications. Polarization at the mass level is pushing Americans across the country to divide themselves into distinct political camps. The rise of an us versus them mindset in American socio-political life is evident. Even more concerningly, these thoughts are contributing directly to a rise in political violence. These are just some of the statements produced by the 2022 article from CarnegieDauman.org. In the same article, the author states, severe polarization correlates with serious democratic decline. Of the 52 instances where democracies reached pernicious levels of polarization, 26, half of the cases, experienced a downgrading of their democratic rating. The evidence is clear that if nothing is done about the state of the country, consequences will surely follow. Talking politics is necessary to fixing democracy. In a 2020 article by US Today, they say exactly that. If we make the decision to avoid difficult conversations, we'll never be able to make progress in the issues that matter to all of us. Understanding that we will not always agree on everything is a major part. The path to bringing us together is talking. However, if we do not, the polarization will continue to loop. Today, we have examined causes, effects, and implications of our polarized political views in the United States. It is similar to the effects of the very first election, all the way to the most recent vote. It can and will remain this way for years to come. It is more important than ever, giving us the responsibility to make the changes needed to fix our democracy.